Yo, what's up, guys? It's the morning here. Sit in front of my morning light to get my circadian rhythm lined up and just bright light in my eyes to wake me up. So if you saw my last video, I broke my finger a couple days ago, so there's gonna be no guitar playing this morning, which I'd probably be playing right now, but instead I thought, how about I create this mind map or visualization that I've been thinking about trying to articulate of the human experience. So the largest, biggest picture view I can conceive of currently into a visualization on paper. So it may take a little bit to explain what that means, but I'm kind of just going to jump into it, kind of explain it as I go. So yeah, let's do it. All right, so here we go. This is where I've started. So a couple years ago, I started thinking more in this frame of view for about as big a picture as I could think of. So in the middle, we've got knowledge. This is just a way of expressing fields of study. So really, this should encompass, if I'm not forgetting things, which I'll check in a second, this should encompass everything you can find in school, essentially. So, you know, pretty self-explanatory for math and science. And humanities is kind of, this is going to include languages, this is going to include music, this is going to include business, writing, arts, right? So that's kind of a blanket term, and as long as I'm not forgetting anything, this should be pretty encompassing of school. Now let me go check. I'm gonna use some ChatGPT and see if I can articulate this better before I zoom out, and the knowledge, essentially school and fields of study becomes one of these, and this becomes, the center becomes the human experience, and we kind of articulate what some of these other things outside of just school are. All right, guys, so here's what I typed into ChatGPT. Just two quick messages, basically confirming that this is a reasonable encapsulation of the school system. Humanities is a pretty broad term, I'm realizing. We're kind of just gonna throw in, here's a better encapsulation: humanities, language and communication, philosophy and ethics, arts and expression, practical skills for life and society, including business, cooking, mindfulness, health, that kind of sort of stuff, and the modern. It's not completely cut and dry, black and white. The biggest example of that is engineering, because engineering doesn't really fall into one of these. It'd be a combination of math and science, really. But at this point, I just want to keep it simple. It's functional. This is pretty irritating. This took probably twice as much time to type without my ring finger, which is just annoying when I could be going through this a lot faster, but we'll keep trucking and move on from here. Okay, so here's the next step. Now we got to figure out what the other branches are. So here's knowledge, like we just went through. Here's now a more encapsulating thing that goes beyond just what we've formally studied. I'm thinking of whether I should include religion out here in the human experience, or if I should include it into a humanity category. But for now, I'm gonna go back to ChatGPT and brainstorm more. Here's a little interesting thing I found right away. Limitations of formal study. Informal or indigenous knowledge systems, example, oral tradition, spiritual practices, and non-Western systems of understanding. Interesting. All right, this is getting now pretty interesting. I don't know why I thought this would be easy. The knowledge part, that's pretty easy. Once you get outside of knowledge, it's like, how do you even encapsulate them in words? So we can scroll up. I did a lot of typing here. Let's see where I started. This is the first one it gave me. So I want a holistic picture of the human experience where knowledge is just one branch. What should also be included outside of that bubble? Here's what ChatGPT gave me right here. See, it says the knowledge, formal study, relationships, and connection. Hold on, I'm gonna clean the screen. I'll be back in a sec. All right, that should be a little better. So relationships and connection, right? Humans are inherently social beings. Relationships shape our experience, family, friendship, romance, society, and community, right? I don't really agree with this. I believe these things have all come into the field of knowledge very recently. I'm talking within the 2000s, maybe even the 2010s. Maybe not. We're talking the last 50 years max. Though we don't fully understand any of this, can we really consider it outside of the field of knowledge? Just because we don't, for example, understand the brain completely, and we're not even close to understanding the brain, or not even close to understanding the human body, or ecosystems, or any organism really for that matter, we still have fields of neuroscience and biology, and we call them fields of study. And recently, we've developed fields that study the human experience from a scientific lens, such as evolutionary psychology and sociobiology, and fields such as that. So I don't really like that one. Emotions and inner life, emotions, mental health, spirituality. Okay, spirituality, I could consider throwing that into one of these, a category out here: spirituality, religion, maybe even supernatural in general. That's a consideration as of now. Emotions, even spirituality and mental health, these I all, again feel like these all fall into categories of study. Emotions can be studied in the arts. They can also be studied in fields such as evolutionary psychology. Mental health, psychology in general. Spirituality, this could be studied through evolutionary psychology. Why do people have these experiences? It could be studied through neuroscience. What neurochemicals or regions of the brain are activated during such type of experiences. For example, so let's continue. Creativity and expression, definitely not, in my opinion, right? This is just art, and we've already thrown art into humanities in the knowledge. Innovation, creativity, I'm just gonna say no. This could be business, this could be art, interdisciplinary thinking, which I feel like we can study all those things. Survival and physiological needs, we already threw health. Medicine I would throw into science, fitness I'd throw into science, well-being I'd even possibly throw into science, if not psychology. Food and shelter, I mean, these, I don't like them, okay? Those ones are not great to me. These look like Maslow's hierarchy of needs, psychology, architecture, security. I mean, there's plenty of things. These are all studyable as of this far. Time and meaning, I don't like this either. Time, we've studied time in physics. We might not be able to fully understand it or grasp it currently, but it's studied. Meaning, I would say that's a philosophy. In philosophy, environment, come on, we've got environmental sciences, we've got studies of like that. Interdependence, yeah, but we're creating fields that are more interconnected and interdisciplinary and big picture all the time. Play, leisure, celebration, again, these are just, no, psychology, right there, that's a good one. Beyond the bubble, universal context, the universe, non-human life. Well, this is called biology, this is called computer science. I mean, aliens, we don't really have a field to study currently. Existential mystery, that's philosophy. The universe, that's philosophy and physics. So really, I said, but aren't these almost all within the realm of being able to be studied? Absolutely right. Essentially, the essence of existence. Why can that not be studied? Well, at least we can think about it, and we throw that into philosophy. Morality and time, or mortality and time. These are really philosophical, I think. Subjective experiences, the incomprehensible. Now we're getting to closer things. Incomprehensible. But we still focus, we try to study everything, right? And I'm starting to think that, okay, I just had a realization. Goes back to the video I made last, or 2 videos ago, depending on when I upload this. Everything that we can encapsulate into language and words, we can study if you consider the field of philosophy a field of study, in which if we have an idea or a word for something, we can think about that thing, right? So for it to be really outside of knowledge, it's got to be outside of language. But just because it's outside of language currently, does that mean it's outside of language forever? I don't think so. We create new words, we create new ideas. There's new paradigms. So I think everything, if this was talking about trends and going towards the future, everything eventually gets here, I think. But let's talk about presently. What's outside of this field then? Because that gives me something to create outside here other than just this, right? And I liked, we're just gonna skip through a lot of this and go to the last one. We were starting to get to, here we go. So the supernatural, right? Presently, can we prove that supernatural exists? No. Do we know the supernatural exists? No. Can we study the supernatural? I don't know. I mean, not really. We can think about certain things, but what about things we don't know about? And we can't actually formally study with science, right? The unknowable, that's pretty interesting, right? Is there anything that's unknowable? Who knows? Currently there is. Right now, possibly. Chaos and unpredictability, true randomness, like potentially things in quantum physics, emergent phenomena. I don't know. I think we can eventually study these things with AI and hyper large databases and algorithms. Just because we can't understand emergent phenomena currently doesn't mean we won't be able to understand in the future. Lived experience, subjective reality, right? Metaphysical concepts. That goes into philosophy. The unexplored, imagination and creation. The transcendent. This is like literally Plato's forms. These ideals that will never be fully realized but are pursued. The human spirit, I would say this is supernatural. Give me a few more minutes. All right, so I'm rethinking this now. One conclusion I've come to is essentially this is it. Let me take a step back. How am I defining this, the human experience? Because essentially everything, the whole part of the human experience, I believe, could fall under knowledge, because you can think about every aspect of the human experience. So let's go back and where we left off to see where I got to this conclusion, right? So essentially we're talking about, we're talking last time about language and things that fall outside of encapsulations in language and potentially math as well. We're kind of talking about unknowns, and supernatural, the infinite, the unknowable, unconscious, right? These things are all studied though, whether it's in religious studies or in metaphysics. So really, everything you can think about, you're already essentially studying, depending on how you refer to it, what you refer to as studying and knowledge. So I think I'm starting to realize that it all falls into the original bubble. Essentially, everything we're talking about just falls into metaphysics. Yes, that realization makes a lot of sense, right? Here we go, the known, the unknown, the ineffable. Metaphysics kind of encapsulates a lot of the stuff I'm thinking about. Here we go. So ChatGPT kind of says at the end, here's the final bubbles: knowledge, right? We already discussed this one: math, science, humanities. Then we got relationships, emotions, and lived experience. And then the supernatural, ineffable, and unknown. And to that I say, relationships, emotions, and lived experience, evolutionary psychology and related, those fall into those fields of study. And then we've got the supernatural, the ineffable, and the unknown, which I throw into metaphysics and religion, which I'll throw back into humanities, somewhere into humanities. So that kind of got me thinking, what am I trying to define here as the human experience? Because is this my human experience? Is this an average of all human experiences? Is this an individual experience? Is this the sum of all human experiences? What is this? And so I kind of said, let's forget this and let's make this an individual. Let's talk about one individual human experience rather than some abstract human experience. And this is where I've gotten to, is now conscious and unconscious, right? And this kind of encapsulates the entire experience, I think, potentially. Right, so conscious is what you're consciously aware of, and that would be all of those things, the knowledge. Once you start thinking and you've become aware of something, you can study it and it becomes a field of knowledge. And essentially with all of these humans over hundreds or thousands of years, we've distilled everything into a field of study as we've just gone through. But just because we've studied everything as a species, or we're studying everything as a species, right? Essentially everything we could think of at this point, someone is studying, and it's been standardized essentially. But to all experience, there is a massive amount of unconsciousness, right? So you go for a walk, you may be aware that you're on a walk, you may be aware that it's sunny outside and you feel warm, you may be aware even of some sounds going on around you. Right? Okay. But you're also unaware of most of what's going on. You're unaware of the biological systems that are going on in your stomach or in your heart or in your nervous system. You're unaware of most of the sensory information you're perceiving or could be aware of, such as other sensations like the clothes on your body, touching your skin, or the wind blowing against your skin or your legs, or some of the smells in the air that you could be conscious of if you dulled all the other sensations and you only focused on the scents in the air. You may pick up on scents that were there the whole time you were just unaware of. You may be unaware of why you feel a certain way, what is being processed in your brain, past experiences and memories that are being brought up by cues outside. What about physical energy and physical stimuli that we can't pick up and perceive as humans, such as ultraviolet light or infrared light or any electromagnetic spectrum radiation or light outside of the visible spectrum, scents that we can't pick up, or chemicals that we can't perceive in the air, right? It's mostly unconscious. But now the question is this unconscious? Is this even part of the human experience? If you're unaware of anything, if you're unaware of something, is that even part of your experience, or is the experience synonymous with conscious? Yeah, so this is pretty interesting, really interesting stuff. This is apparently a pretty central theme, or it's been a debate in philosophy, psychology, neuroscience for centuries. ChatGPT kind of, there's not a definite answer. This is not a math or a science. This is a philosophical question. But ChatGPT mentions Descartes and saying that consciousness is experience, essentially synonymous, really emphasizing the primacy of consciousness, right? This is before we even really had an idea of unconsciousness. And unconsciousness really comes from Freud and Jung. Really Freud, because Jung was a student. Freud really came up with this unconscious, or coined it, or popularized it. I don't know the whole origin, but I know the idea of unconsciousness comes around the 1800s, right? And now I'm starting to think you can't really consider this. Well, there's two things you can do. You can either consider the unconsciousness a part of the human experience, or the unconscious not a part of the human experience, right? And that's gonna bring up two radically different mind maps. So I've been grappling with this for a few minutes now, and where I'm at is I'm thinking either there's two things. It's either the human experience is conscious experience, right? There is no difference. You only experience what you're conscious of. Really defining experience as consciousness and conscious awareness. But the alternative is that the human experience encapsulates much more than just the conscious. It actually encapsulates either just the conscious, or it encapsulates everything. All existence, all matter, the entirety of the universe, multiverse, or everything, because the way I'm seeing it is, if you define the human experience as also including the unconscious, where does the unconsciousness end? I don't know if there's a limit to the unconsciousness. So let me try to put some words to this. The way I'm thinking of it as of now is the human experience, the centrality is the consciousness. What is consciousness? I don't know. That's a whole branch of philosophy, but it's something along the lines of, I am aware of my identity, of myself, of things that go on around me. I have memories that I can articulate. It's very strange, because animals may have a lot of those things, but what separates us from animals? Right? We say humans are conscious. We don't think animals are conscious, generally. And there's something largely in there about language. I think language is absolutely massive in there. There's something about being able to think even outside of language. Right, there's something huge there about language, and even beyond that, it's about being a social creature. I think that's a massive part. But say consciousness is a centrality of the human experience, but we also consider the unconsciousness part of the human experience. Okay, so you've got the consciousness, but you have to also think that the unconsciousness massively influences the conscious, right? You may think the conscious is controlling itself and it's uninfluenced by the unconscious, especially if you're unaware of the unconscious. But for example, let's take someone who had some type of childhood trauma, some deeply ingrained memory early in life that was highly emotional, and you give them some scenario later in life, and they make a decision that's based in, or that would be predictable based on that unconscious, deep-seated memory. Let's make it more concrete. Let's say some kid as a child, or some person as a child, had some very negative experience with chocolate, right? And they don't even remember it, but let's say their mother was allergic to chocolate or somehow died because of eating, or some way died because of chocolate, and the child watched that happen even before they were even conscious, maybe a 2-year-old. And then when they're, say, 20 and they're given the option to eat chocolate, they don't want it, and they think they don't have any conscious memory of the experience of watching their mother die because of chocolate, but they just want to avoid chocolate, and they think, I just don't like it. I don't know why I don't like it. I just don't like it. And they think they fully made that decision on their own. And they may rationalize logic. Well, it's got processed sugar, and processed sugar isn't healthy for you, so that's why I don't like chocolate. But in reality, there's this deep-seated memory that they're not even aware of that's dictating their conscious experience and their decision-making in the present. So just from that example, I'm trying to articulate that this unconscious can influence the conscious, and the conscious doesn't have to be aware of the unconscious for it to influence it. And the conscious can be deceived into thinking that it is the one that is, or lacking the understanding that there is deeper influences that are driving its decision, while it's thinking that I made this decision on my own without bias or influences. Okay, so if that's the case, and that is true, where is the limit to that? We've got memories, sure. We've got experience from the past, but what about experience right now in the present? And this is where the idea of environment comes into play, because all this sensory input you are perceiving currently, internally and externally. Okay, what's the temperature of the room? How much lighting is there? Right? How much light is going on around you? What colors are you perceiving? What textures is your skin perceiving right now? What memories do you have associated with such temperatures, such amount of light, such shapes, such colors, such visual patterns? Because those memories, this current sensory input that you're not even largely aware of, the colors, the shapes, the patterns, the temperature, the sounds, the smells, they're all likely linked to memories. They're cues to memories. Right? And all this environment is massively influencing your unconscious, and your unconscious is largely driving your conscious. But where does the environment end? Right? Is there really such thing as a closed system, or is everything an open system? That's interesting. It goes back to the video yesterday of putting words to things that those words really aren't what you're saying. They're simplifications. And through words and nouns, we create borders between things. We say, this is the desk and this is the paper, and these things are not connected. But in reality, there is no separation between these things. There's only separation in our minds so that we can grasp what's going on here. In reality, it's just a bunch of matter and energy. But we've been able to, or had to, simplify these things into separate entities, when in reality there's no separation between anything on Earth. And then really there's no separation between Earth and space, other than the words we say. This is where Earth's atmosphere ends and this is where it begins. The arbitrary definitions based on whatever density of air particles, or what particles of or atoms you find there. Right, largely this video has been trying to articulate and explore these ideas that are hard to grapple with without just starting, right? Philosophers in the past surely have thought about things like this, and they got to these ideas through just exploring ideas. And that's largely what I've been doing. So where I'm at currently is there's something to consciousness in the human experience, and it may be the whole human experience can be explained through consciousness as consciousness. These are synonymous, right? Your awareness. And there, in that lens, there are lots of implications about things like meditation and journaling and self-awareness as being massive for your experience as a human. You increase your awareness of things, how you feel, memories, you reflect on things, you become aware of things you were unaware of before, such as through learning things, you become aware of more patterns that you were unaware of before. So there's a lot of implications on, if the whole human experience is just consciousness, well, how do we expand consciousness? Should we want to expand consciousness? That's another question. Does more consciousness and more awareness really mean better? And if the human experience can be explained beyond what consciousness is, right? It encapsulates the unconscious and the influences of the unconscious, namely the environment, which has no borders other than what we have made. The human experience in that lens can be considered everything, like the totality of all existence, because it's all one interconnected system influencing each other. So, yeah, this may be something that sits in my subconscious for many years and comes back out, just like this understanding of knowledge was something I started articulating, I don't know, maybe a year and a half ago, maybe 2.5 years ago. I can't place it exactly. I know where I was, I know what I was doing. It was before I went to college. It was sometime off, or in between high school and college. How that came to influence the way I think now, and how I've begun to look at the whole totality of the human experience in this broader lens. So that's pretty much gonna probably wrap it up for this video. This gives me some more ideas about videos I'd like to create in the future, ways I'm seeing the world currently, including building schema, these big frameworks. You want to build big frameworks that you can place ideas onto that will stick and easily be remembered and built upon. If you're just learning something like in school that you can't connect to a bigger schema or framework, those things are very hard to remember, and which can be particularly annoying if you're trying to remember something and you want to learn things quickly. So yeah, I'll catch you guys in the next one.